The Istanbul Cipher. Chapter 17. Emre's message came just after dawn. I need to talk. Come now. Don't bring anyone that wasn't like him. He was a team player, not a lone wolf. I threw on yesterday's clothes and walked fast, head down. The streets were already humming with breakfast traffic and men opening shop shutters. By the time I reached Emre's building, the front door was open. No music. No banter from his older brother. Just silence and the scent of burnt toast. Inside, I found Emre standing in the hallway, rigid, his back to me. Through the narrow doorway behind him, I could see his mother wiping tears with the edge of her headscarf. His father stood beside the dining table, arms crossed, knuckles pale. "Zach," Emre said without turning. "They came last night." The words hit like gravel in my gut. "Police?" He shook his head. "Worse. Concerned citizens. One of Baba's old army friends. Said my name was linked in a file. Something about foreign tech influence. Misinformation." His father's voice cut in, low and shaking. "You think this is a game? A school project. This is real life. This is jobs, records. They don't forget things like this." I stepped forward. "Let me talk to someone." "We can explain." "You'll do nothing." His father snapped. "You don't live here. You don't have a son. This ends now." His mother's sob turned into a small, stifled gasp. I glanced at Emre. His jaw was tight, but his eyes were raw. "They think I ruined everything," he said, almost to himself. "And maybe they're right." I didn't answer. What could I say? That they hadn't gone too far? That truth was worth the collateral damage? Not here. Not yet. Emre's brother emerged from the back room, silent but stern. "We're pulling your devices offline. I'll lock down your accounts. It's not safe anymore." I watched Emre nod once. Mechanical, like his whole frame was running on fumes. When I left, no one said goodbye. Later that morning, I walked to the corner newsstand near the ferry docks. Out of habit, more than anything. The old man behind the counter barely looked up, engrossed in a crossword. I scanned the rack, expecting the usual tabloid chaos. Then I saw it. Front page. Full color. APP desecrates Turkish heritage. Ministry opens investigation. And just below the headline, a blurred still from our live stream. Siebel's outstretched hand mid-scan, the mosaic half-lit in the background. Emre's silhouette distorted in the corner. My stomach dropped. I grabbed a copy and stepped aside, flipping the pages fast. It was all there. Quotes from Hakan Kadir, anonymous ministry officials, and cultural preservation advocates, all painting the same picture. Reckless foreign interference, digital distortion of sacred space, naive youth exploited by foreign agendas. They used our words out of context, stripped the meaning, made it sound like we were defacing, not revealing. Students tampered with a condemned site under false academic pretense. Anonymous livestream posed a risk to public safety and national unity. Layla appeared beside me. I hadn't even seen her approach. She wore her hood up, eyes sharp. "You saw it?" I nodded, passing her the paper. She stared for a few seconds, then folded it neatly in half. They knew exactly what to crop. The clasped hands are gone. The quote, gone. Just enough shadow to make us look like the threat. Behind us, the newspaper seller finally glanced up. Bad time to be famous, he muttered. Layla didn't respond. She was already walking away, the folded paper gripped tight in her fist. I looked back at the photo one more time. Not just distorted, weaponized. They twisted the narrative with surgical precision. This is how you kill truth, I thought. Not with fire, with framing. My phone buzzed in my pocket. A new alert on our encrypted group thread. Just one line from Ayla. Safe zone? 1 hour, the tram station. Good. We needed each other again, especially now. The abandoned tram station still smelled like rust and wet stone. It had once been part of a loop line running through the old Jewish quarter, shut down decades ago, forgotten like everything else we were trying to unbury. The tracks had been stripped. The stairwell lights were long dead. But the concrete alcove near the far end still gave us shelter. And more importantly, no cameras. I arrived to find Emre already there, crouched over his laptop, its faint blue glow casting jagged shadows up the wall. His hoodie was pulled up, shoulders hunched. I opened my mouth to greet him, but Ayla's voice sliced through the gloom first. You pushed too far. She stood just inside the stairwell, arms crossed, backpack slung over one shoulder like she was ready to bolt. Her tone was quiet, almost calm, but it was the kind of calm that came after too many sleepless nights. Emre didn't turn around. We had to. Ayla took a few steps closer. You didn't have to stream it. You didn't have to light up every server in the country. He stood, fast. None of it mattered if no one saw it. We were sitting on history truth, and you wanted to bury it all over again. I wanted to protect us. Her voice cracked, not from volume, but something thinner. Raw. You think I don't care? You think I haven't been dreaming of this every night since we started? But I also want to live long enough to see it finish. They stared at each other. Neither moved. The silence stretched until I shifted my weight and made the floor creak. Emre broke first. He reached into his bag and pulled out a flash drive, holding it like a fragile offering. One thing made it out. Siebel's backup. It's partial, but it's real. He plugged it into the laptop. A restored image blinked onto the screen, rough around the edges, pixelated, but unmistakable. A fragment of the mosaic, hands clasped in a circle. Ayla stepped closer. She knelt beside him, whispered. They wrote with hands that knew both scripture and silence. She looked at him then. It's not just a message. It's a testimony. I sat at the edge of my bed, lights off, laptop open, blinds drawn tight. The encrypted server interface blinked once, then again. A new file appeared. No subject line, no sender. Just a timestamp and a string of nonsense letters, like someone had mashed a keyboard in panic or mockery. I hesitated for a breath, then clicked. The video loaded in pieces, grainy at first, then horrifyingly familiar. Footage from the church, but warped. The camera angles had been altered. Emre's hands were spliced to make it look like he was chiseling the wall. Sibel's voiceover was clipped, made to sound like she was mocking the site, not honoring it. My own silhouette stood near the mosaic, frozen mid-gesture, and someone had added an audio overlay that made it sound like I said, "Erase the record." A synthetic voice, cold, male, in perfect English, cut in at the end. One more upload, and this becomes national security. My stomach dropped. A deep fake. Flawless enough to fool a casual viewer. Devastating if released. I'd seen my share of digital manipulation, but this was surgical, meant to destroy trust in seconds. I stared at the laptop screen, hands clenched on either side of the keyboard. I could feel the weight of it now. Not just the threat to me, but to the kids. A tool like this, aimed the wrong way, could fracture everything we'd built. Erase us as easily as the stories we were trying to preserve. I closed the laptop hard. The click of the latch echoed louder than I expected in the silence of the room. I sat still in the dark. They weren't just warning us. They were building the story in advance, making us the villains before we even stepped onto the stage. I pulled out my phone, thought about messaging the team, then paused. No good could come from panic. Not yet. I needed a lead. I needed proof this wasn't just suppression, it was sabotage. And that meant I needed someone who still believed the truth had weight. The sun barely filtered through the iron-latticed windows of Professor Niazi's cramped office at the university annex. Dust hovered in the slanted light like it had tenure. The smell of old paper and stronger tea made the air feel heavier than it was. I sat opposite the professor as he hunched over a stack of archive boxes, his wiry fingers flipping through them with purpose. "You came at the right hour," Niazi muttered, not looking up. "If you'd come tomorrow, I might have been told to forget you ever existed." "I'm used to that lately," I said. "But I'm running out of exits." He grunted. "Then you're finally doing something right." He produced a brittle photocopy from the middle of a folder so yellowed it looked ancient. Across the top, Urban Preservation Survey, District 9. No date, no seal, just ink faded by time and bureaucracy. He tapped a note scribbled in the margin. A different handwriting, sharper, urgent. "Look under the northern wall," it read. This was part of a preliminary demolition order for the waterline expansion back in 1987, Niazi said, sliding the paper toward me. That project never happened. The funding dried up, the paperwork vanished. But that note, it wasn't mine. It belonged to the man who trained me. He disappeared into academia and never resurfaced. I traced the handwritten line with my finger. "Do you know what he meant?" Niazi leaned back. "Only this. He believed that if you followed the wrong maps long enough, you'd eventually find the right story." Under the stones, in the silence. I folded the photocopy carefully and slid it into my coat pocket. "I thought I came here to find allies," I said, rising to leave. Turns out I just needed someone who remembered what mattered. The professor gave a thin smile. "We are outnumbered, Mr. Merritt. But we are not outstoried." Outside, the air stung sharper than I expected. I checked my phone. No messages, no updates. But in my coat pocket, my fingers curled around the edge of the old map. Northern wall, final entry point. Whatever's left, it's waiting. The rooftop was colder than usual. Istanbul's skyline pulsed in quiet orange and violet where the last light kissed the minarets. I stayed back in the shadows of the stairwell exit, watching Ayla and Emre from a distance, trying not to intrude on something that wasn't mine. They sat cross-legged near the far ledge, a wide paper map weighted with tea glasses between them. Emre poured quietly from a dented thermos. Neither spoke for a long while. When Ayla finally broke the silence, her voice was low but clear. "You think I'm cold?" Calculating. You're not wrong. But I didn't join this to be liked. Emre stirred the tea absently. I never thought you were cold. Just scared of believing in things you can't control. She half laughed. That's not fear. That's strategy. No, Emre said. It's both. They sat with that for a beat. The map flapped slightly in the breeze, edges curling toward the place they'd marked in thick red ink. Wall chamber, site 003. I found something, Emre added, reaching into his hoodie pocket. He pulled out a laminated scan, the same restored fragment from Siebel's backup. Siebel saved more than code. She saved voice. He handed it to Ayla. She didn't speak at first, just traced the phrase with her fingertip. They wrote with hands that knew both scripture and silence. She folded the scan and slid it into her notebook. This isn't just about one church, she said. It's every erased thing pretending to still be buried. Emre tilted his head. So, you still in? Ayla's answer came after a breath that felt like shedding something. I'm not out. Just smarter now. From across the roof, I finally allowed myself to exhale. They're cracked, not broken. The wind shifted, carrying city sounds up from the streets below. Honking horns, the distant call to prayer, someone yelling about simits. Normal life. Still happening. But up here, under the weight of history and resolve, the map between them looked like more than paper. It looked like defiance. And somewhere in the dark, the next move waited.